Thanks everyone for coming. This year we're doing things a bit differently, and this is our virtual garlic mustard pull and pesto making workshop. It's you're here with OPIRG Guelph, and this is part of the 2Rivers Festival 2020. Before we get started, I'm just going to start with a land acknowledgement, and then we'll move it along to Megan. We'd like to acknowledge that within Guelph, we are currently occupying the ancestral lands connected to the Attawandaron or Chinanton peoples, the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe, and it is the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. We also offer our as we strive to strengthen relationships with all Indigenous communities. This is a time to reflect on the ongoing history of colonization that has brought us to settle on lands that are not our own, and to seek to understand our place within that history. A land acknowledgement does not exist in the past tense because colonialism is a current ongoing process, and we need to be mindful of our present participation in that process. Acknowledging relationships to place and space is not new. It has been an Indigenous practice since time immemorial. Today, as we gather virtually on stolen lands during this pandemic, we must remember to always center the voices and experiences of Black and Indigenous communities and communities of color who are disproportionately impacted by this and many other health crises. As organizers doing social and environmental justice work, we must stand in solidarity with Indigenous land defenders who continue to risk their lives as extractive work continues on their lands despite the danger this poses to the health of their communities, and honor the resilience of those who continue to survive and resist. Now I'll pass it over to Megan, who's going to chat a bit about the 2Rivers Festival.
Thank you very much, Nat. That was wonderful. I really would like to just welcome everybody here. Thank you so much for being here for the Garlic Mustard Pull and Pesto Making Workshop. This event is a part of the 2Rivers Festival that celebrates and appreciates the Speed and Eramosa rivers. Our thanks to OPIRG for sharing their passion for the rivers with you and with us, and thank you all for attending this year's event. Our event is organized and run by volunteers and involves many community organizations. So please show your support to these organizations that are doing such good work in our communities. Please also head to the website and you'll find our advertisers and our event sponsors, the Guelph Outdoor School, who generously provided funds to make this festival possible. You will also see the list of all 40 events that we have that have all been modified to be accessible online, and please go ahead and RSVP for the events that look interesting to you. This festival is a project of the Wellington Water Watchers, and it is our deep hope that you fall in love with the rivers and want to protect them further. We will be recording this session to share with you and others after. If you do not feel comfortable with that, just please let us know in the chat box, and I can make sure your video is turned off. With all that being said, we really hope you enjoy, and we want to see you share your experience of this event. So please take pictures to show what you've been up to, and tag at 2Rivers Festival on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you all very much, and I'm going to turn it back to OPIRG for the rest of the event.
Okay, so if we could just ask everyone to keep your mic muted while we're doing the webinar, and also just to note that there is going to be an opportunity for questions. There'll be quite a few opportunities for questions, and we'll let you know how that's going to work when that happens. And again, the webinar will be coming out after the event, so don't feel like you need to take notes or anything like that.
Cool. So we'll just quickly introduce ourselves. We're your hosts. I'm Natalie Uwali, and I'm the Organizational and Policy Development Coordinator for OPIRG Guelph. I'm to the left. I don't know if you can see the slides. Are the slides being forward? Can't see.
You can't see the slides?
No, even me.
There's a really cute photo of us that you're missing out on, everyone. But
I can see this. I can see the slide even.
Mandy, maybe if you just stop your screen share and try it again.
Sorry, everyone.
No worries.
Okay, do you guys see it now?
No.
I see your face.
See, this works always so well in the
Test.
practice.
Yeah, it works. Yeah. It's working in
All right,
test.
1 second. It's not giving me an option to share it.
Interesting. I wonder if you'd be able to share it, Megan. Do you have the link? Oh, there. I see
Okay,
it.
good.
Did you
I
just
see
see
it.
it?
Yeah.
I see the.
Can you still see it?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yay. Okay, so now we have Mandy, who's in the middle.
Okay, so I'm the person that doesn't understand tech. I'm the volunteer coordinator at OPIRG Guelph.
And then we have Kieran.
I'm Kieran. I'm the Speed River project coordinator and office coordinator at OPIRG Guelph.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. Welcome everyone. My name is Kieran, working as a Speed River project coordinator at OPIRG Guelph. I'm here with a brief introduction of OPIRG Guelph, who we are and what we do. OPIRG Guelph stands for Ontario Public Interest Research Group Guelph, and it is established in 1976 as a public interest research group at the University of Guelph. OPIRG is a volunteer-based, not-for-profit organization, focuses on social and environmental justice issues. University of Guelph undergrad and grad students and community members are the general member of OPIRG Guelph, and our office is located at the University of Guelph. And I'm going to say what we do. OPIRG Guelph works on to strengthen the link between the University of Guelph student groups and local community. And OPIRG's main goal is to inspire and involve students, faculty, staff, and local community in addressing issues of environmental and social justice in the community. And our major works involves collaborating and partnering with the campus and community groups. Also facilitate various training and workshops on activism. And OPIRG also provide funding and support to individuals and groups wishing to undertake new initiatives. Since 1976, OPIRG Guelph has played an instrumental role in many successful local and global environmental and social justice campaigns. If you need more, please visit our website, www.opirgguelph.org. Thank you.
Okay, so today's webinar is going to teach you about the garlic mustard plant. So we're going to talk about the biology, the habitat, and the history of the plant and its impact on native species. And then we're going to watch a little video about how and when to safely pull and dispose of garlic mustard. And then a second video, which is about how to make a basic garlic mustard pesto. So at the end of the webinar, you will have some resources. You'll also know what you need to do your own pull and to make your own pesto. And you will have a basic garlic mustard pesto recipe. And also, as we mentioned, this webinar will be available. So you'll also have these slides as well. Okay, so garlic mustard, scientific name is Alliaria petiolata, and it's an herbaceous plant from the mustard family. So Alliaria means resembling allium, and that refers to the fact that if you crush the leaves, you get a garlic-like smell. So this plant is native to all of Europe, all of North Africa, and it stretches as far as northern India and western China. And it was brought to North America in the early 1800s, mainly as an herb and a salad green. But I've also seen information that says that it was medicinal, it was used to treat ulcers, and also that sometimes it was used to prevent erosion. So most importantly for our purposes today, this plant is biennial, so it has a 2-year life cycle. So it doesn't seed in the first year, it seeds in the second one. Okay, so this is year 1. If you have a look at the photo, you'll see that it's very low to the ground, and it's basically, there's one stem, and then you get like a little rosette of leaves coming out of that stem, and they're kidney shaped. They don't produce any seeds, and they look quite similar to violets if you're not super familiar with them. So I'll just show you a comparison, and I just want to check in. Can everyone hear me, and can everyone see the slides?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so here on the left we have year 1 garlic mustard, and on the right we have violets. So obviously you can tell which are violets because they've flowered, and I couldn't find a photo without any flowers, but you can kind of see that if there were no flowers that you would, you know, they're very similar, they look similar. So the way that you can tell is first of all, the edges of the garlic mustard are much more bumpy, and then the veins are much more intricate. They're much more, you know, squiggly than the violet ones. They're also, the garlic mustard tends to be lighter in color, but you can't really tell that unless you see them side by side. So it's very important not to be mistaken between the garlic mustard and the violets, because violets are one of those flowers that come up really early in the spring. They're one of the earliest flowers, and so they're a really good source of food for pollinators before a lot of the other stuff can come up. So we don't want to be going around ripping up violets by accident. Okay, this is year 2. So now you can see that the garlic mustard looks quite different. It's a lot taller. In year 2, it can be anywhere from 30 to 130 centimeters. So really it looks more like a bushy. And the leaves have kind of elongated a bit. So they look more like a heart or like a triangle than the kidney shape of the first year. At the top, you can see there's white flowers, which we'll show in close up in a minute. And then you also can't really see on this photo, but in the second year, there's these long and thin seed pods that come out of the top of the plant. And it's those seed pods that are the reason that it's the second year plants that we need to pull up more urgently than the first year. So here's a close-up of the flowers. You can see that they're white flowers. They have 4 petals. And then you can also see on the left photo, but more so on the right one, you can see the seed pods kind of sticking up. So if you look at the photo on the right, you'll see the bottom seed pods are still very green, but the top ones are kind of turning a little bit brown. And if you're pulling garlic mustard, one of the main things is to not spread the seeds. So if you notice that the seed pods are getting dry and kind of brittle and more brown, it's probably a bit too late to pull that plant, because you may end up getting all those seeds to disperse as you're doing it. Okay, so garlic mustard grows, it likes the moist and the shaded soil, and it doesn't like highly acidic soil. So the general areas that it likes to be are river floodplains and forests, and it really likes the kind of areas that are sort of the edges of things or that have been a little bit disturbed. So you'll see it a lot in like openings of forests and along the side of the road, along the side of the trails, and at the edges of woods. Often it's found in association with hardwoods, and generally it's found in deciduous forests. It doesn't really like to grow under conifers. And so if you've ever walked from the boathouse east along the Aramosa River towards Victoria on the north side, you know that at the start of your walk, there's that really coniferous area, and there's lots of like red needles on the ground there. There's no garlic mustard there. I've never seen any. But as you keep walking east and you sort of get into more deciduous woods, that's where the garlic mustard really comes out. And there's parts of that trail that it's pretty much the only plant on the understory. So why are we talking about pulling it up and eating it? So garlic mustard is an invasive species. It grows really quickly and also really early in the spring. So it comes up first and then it gets bigger fast. which means that it spreads really fast because it can choke out the other understory species by depriving them of sunlight, basically. They're trying to come up and it's already pretty much covered the ground. The other thing is that when it takes over an area, it releases chemicals into the ground that suppress the native fungi, and they bring nutrients to the native plants and the trees. So it's not just that it's choking plants out by preventing them from getting sunlight, it's actually changing the chemical composition of the soil. An important thing about the seeds is that 1 square meter of plants can produce 60,000 seeds, which is a lot of seeds, and they can last up to 5 years sitting in the soil. So when we talk about pulling up wild edibles and harvesting wild edibles to eat them, oftentimes there's a concern that you're taking food from other species that need that food, but you don't have to worry about that with garlic mustard because it's not an important food source to any other species in North America. That's because it's relatively new to our ecosystem, so animals have not evolved to eat it. However, it is a source of vitamins and it does contain other nutrients, and so it's pretty good for humans to eat, and you can eat all of it, so from the root to the seed, every part. So in a nutshell, pulling up garlic mustard, you're encouraging biodiversity, you're not depriving anyone of food, and eating it is very healthy. Okay, so that's the end of my part. Are there any questions?
So if anybody has a question, you can either put it in the chat box and I can read it out, or if you feel comfortable, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
I think Kate asked something, yeah?
Yes. Do we have any hotspots in Guelph?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more hotspots than I know of, but at OPIRG, we've been working for the past few years on the north shore of the 2Rivers, kind of where I was talking about. We've been starting the pulls at the end of Brockville. So if you go down from York Road, south, you go down Brockville Avenue, you can see that is a huge hotspot right there. And then all the way down to Victoria Road, there's still some, but I would say the end of Brockville is a really, really big spot. And then also on the west shore of the Speed River, around where Goldie Mill is, we used to do pulls there until they kind of had to close it off for all the stuff that they found in there. So yeah, so there's lots and lots there as well. There is a resource that is linked at the end of the slideshow, which is the GRCA invasive species resource. And I imagine that the GRCA, the Grand River Conservation Authority, would be good people to ask. And also the city of Guelph, a lot of them are laid off, or they're on kind of a leave right now because of COVID, but they do have a parks and trails person called Dave Beaton, and he would be also a really good person to ask.
I can answer one thing. Within this last 10 years, the garlic mustard I'm working on that part too, and the garlic mustard is increasing a lot in the other area also. Even I live close by the Henland Creek Park, and there are lots of deers on the Henland Creek Park area, but before 7 years ago, I didn't see lots of garlic mustard. Now it's lots of area covered by the garlic mustard. I don't know it impacted the deer's food or not.
Okay, we have a few more questions. Can you go over when not to pick the plants again?
Yeah, so Nat's going to cover a little bit of this in the video, but I would say the most important thing is that when the seed pods are turning kind of a brown, looking more brittle, more dry, that's when you don't want to pull them up. It's kind of too late at that point, because the seeds are ready to disperse. And so if you pull up the plant, it's going to kind of shake around a little bit, and then those seed pods are ready to go. So you may end up just doing more harm than good pulling it up at that point.
And one last question here. In terms of pollutants, is there anything to keep in mind when harvesting to ensure the plants are good to eat?
Yes, Nat is going to talk about that part when she talks about harvesting.
These are all great questions.
Mm-hmm.
All
and
right.
yes, spoiler alert, yes, there is.
It looks like that's everything for now. If anybody has any other questions, we can go back to them later.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so now we get to watch a little video. If you find the video is not very loud, you may just need to turn the volume up on your computer a little bit, because we kind of lost some volume when we embedded it in the slideshow. Here we go.
Hola, soy Natalie. Welcome to OPIRG Guelph's Garlic Mustard Club. Today I'm going to chat with you folks about why garlic mustard is an invasive species, how to identify it, how to harvest it and dispose of it properly, and finally how to eat it and make really tasty recipes. This is garlic mustard right over here. This species is invasive because it's not native to Turtle Island. It was brought over from Europe in the 1800s, and it's now found all across North America. It's usually in its own lands, a beautiful part of the ecosystem. And so when I say invasive, I don't want people to think of it as a negative plant and emit kind of negative energies towards it, because only in these lands it doesn't belong, and so it's taking up a lot of space where it shouldn't be. But in Europe, it's a lovely part of a really thriving ecosystem. But anyways, it's the roots of garlic mustard emit a toxic chemical that is really toxic to the native plants that are around, and so it takes up the entire forest floor. And that's why it so quickly spreads and then kills off any other native plants that might be around that other beings rely on for subsistence. I'm going to explain to you essentially how to identify it. And as you saw earlier, this plant is it's older right now. In its first years, it's kind of closer to the ground, like here. And the stems have a purplish tinge. That's how you can identify it. The leaves are kind of kidney shaped. They're like a little bit of a heart shape. Whereas here, these are probably plants that are in their second year of growth, and these even older. These plants have already started flowering a little bit, and the leaves have changed. So the leaves are now more like a triangle, but they still have a little bit of a heart shape. And they also have squiggly parts on the outsides. That's how you can tell that it's garlic mustard, as well as on the top. You don't see the flowers yet, but you will soon. And they're tiny white flowers that have 4 petals. And if you taste them, they have kind of like a horseradish taste. They're pretty bitter. If you want to harvest it, so we're going to move on to the harvesting part, you have to be really careful because it's so invasive. So it spreads really quickly and it will take up all the space. You don't want to put any of it on the ground once you pull it up from the ground, because it will seed and flower again. So I'll demonstrate how to pull it. You usually want to grab it right from the stem. And sometimes it's hard and the entire root doesn't come out, but you want the whole root to come out if you can. So you kind of, yeah, this one's a big one too. You kind of want to grab it right here and pull up, but it's really hard. And see, like the whole root didn't come out of it. You can still kind of see here, but on the bottom there are some bits of the root that did come out. You just have to be really careful. And this you immediately want to put into a bag, so don't let it touch the ground. And I'm putting it into this cloth bag only because I'm going to be eating it afterwards. But if I weren't eating it and I'm just harvesting it to dispose of it, to control it, I would put it in a plastic bag and then tie it up as quickly as you're done, so that none of it is spreading anywhere. And to dispose of it properly, you have to throw it away like garbage. It can't go in the compost, which is really sad, but you would call like your local nature center, or maybe here in the city of Guelph, and they know proper ways to dispose of this plant. And if you're doing a big harvest, like we usually do at OPIRG, the city of Guelph comes and picks up all of our garbage bags at the end, whatever we're not using to eat. So yeah, it should be pretty simple, but you just have to be really careful about not spreading any of the seeds when you're pulling it out. And now I'll tell you a little bit about ways that you can eat it. So this leaf here, all the leaves are edible on the garlic mustard plant, and they have a really garlicky taste, which is super nice. You can make pesto, that's a pretty popular recipe, and then Kieran is gonna explain how to make garlic mustard pesto right after this, which will be really fun. The flower, it doesn't have a flower right now, but you can also eat the little petals. You can put them on a salad. They're a bit bitter, like I said before, it's kind of like horseradish. And the stems are also super tasty, and you can just cook them with olive oil in the oven or put them in a stir fry or something like that. So most of the plant is edible. The roots, I'm not super sure. I haven't actually heard of anybody eating the roots, and I don't know what the taste would be like, but most of the plant is edible, so eat as much as you can. And that's it. Cool. Okay, so that's not it. I have some extra harvesting tips for you folks, because after I made this video and said, I don't know if the roots are edible, I figured out that yes, the roots are in fact edible, and they're actually super tasty if you cook them in the oven with just olive oil. Really good. So the entire plant is edible. You see the whole thing. Also, once you harvest garlic mustard, it's good to go back every single year and do the same spot over and over again, because that'll make it so it doesn't keep coming back. And it's also good if you can plant a hardy native plant in the empty space that will resist that garlic mustard. The best time to pull is, like Mary had just said, when the seed pods are not dry and brown yet. And you'll see right now, it's actually probably a good time to harvest because it hasn't flowered yet. The buds are out, but the actual flower isn't out. So there's no seeds right now, so it's fine. It's probably a great time to harvest right now. Also, things that someone asked before, the riverbanks in Guelph were shored up with garbage in the 50s. So if you're there's lots of other areas, like maybe just don't harvest right by the river. But if you even go by the boathouse, right by where the covered bridge is, on the right side of that, there's so much garlic mustard. That's where I went and harvested. And also if you go on the trails, but to the left of the river and go in the forest more, it's like covering the entire forest floor. It's everywhere. You can't miss it. So you can avoid the river parts if you want, but that's the only thing that I would think about toxins. The last thing is, the reason why I said that you shouldn't dispose of garlic mustard in the compost is because it will still seed and grow and spread if you put it in the compost. So you have to like suffocate it, and like, it sounds really sad, in a plastic bag and then throw it out like garbage so it doesn't grow again. That's it. Any questions?
And we could do the same thing. You can either unmute yourself to ask a question or pop it in the chat box and I can read it out. All right, if there are any questions, you can feel free to ask them later on.
Sweet. Now we have Kieran, who's going to show us how to make garlic mustard pesto. Yay.
Now that Nancy has shown you how to pull garlic mustard properly, I'm going to show you how to make a garlic mustard pesto and what ingredient we'll need to make a pesto. First, I'm going to pull this garlic mustard plant from the ground just to be sure to pull out the entire plant from the ground because it is invasive plant. The entire plant is edible and we can eat roots, stem, leaf and flowers. Now I'm going to pull up all these leaves from this plant and wash with the water thoroughly. Now we are in the kitchen. These are the freshly picked garlic mustard leaves. They are washed and clean, ready to mix with the some few simple ingredients. All we need to make a garlic mustard pesto, we need some freshly picked garlic mustard, garlic and lemon juice, and some sunflower seeds, and olive oil, then some salt. And we need a blender. You can use a food processor also. Now let's get started to make a garlic mustard pesto. I will add first this garlic mustard leaves. There are 4 cups of leaves. I'm putting here in the blender. 1, 2. Uh, 3 cloves of garlic, and this is the lime juice from 1 lime, and 2 ounces of sunflower seed. You can use the walnut or pine nuts if you want. And this is 4 ounces of the olive oil. You can use the sunflower oil if you like, and half teaspoonful of salt. That's it. Now we can mix together in the blender, and I'm using this blender to blend it. Now all ingredients are well mixed. We can take it out into the bowl. It looks so delicious and fresh. Almost a ballful. Finally, we can enjoy this fresh and delicious pesto. We can have this pesto with bread, cracker, hot pasta, and much more. Thank you so much for your participation in this webinar. Hi again. This is the slides for the recipe, what I use in this video. And if you have any questions, ask me. And I have a OneNote because I have been using or eating garlic mustard pesto since long time. And I found roasted sunflower is more delicious, tastier than the raw sunflower seeds used in this pesto. One thing, and other things, if you want to have a different, there are various kind of different recipe found in the Google. Just Google garlic mustard pesto in the Google, and you can find the most of recipe. I have a one here link there. You can see on that too. And there is a time for questions. If you have any questions.
I came a little bit late, but that was a beautiful recipe. Good evening, everyone. I may have missed this, but I'm wondering where in Guelph you can find wild garlic mustard growing?
They are around the edge of the Eramosa River, and you can find in SP River bank also. But it is you have to be careful to, if you are eating the pesto. Some of the parts of the Guelph river bank was dumping side around the 50 to 70. You can see you have to be very careful when you are picking those things, pulling those things.
Thank you.
Thank you for your questions.
All right, any other questions? All right, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, so we're coming up to the end of the webinar, but I wanted to leave you with some resources. So the first one is the Grand River Conservation Authority. They have a really good sort of fact sheet called Invasive Plants that it talks about a lot of invasive plants. It's actually really interesting how many invasive plants there are in Guelph. So that's good to see. And then as part of that resource, they have the Landowner's Guide to Controlling Invasive Woodland Plants, and then also a document called Grow Me Instead, that talks about which non-invasive plants you can put in your garden. So I would check out the GRCA resources. And then the city of Guelph, they don't seem to mind that much about garlic mustard. The city of Guelph is really concerned with I think it's called the dog strangling vine, which is really awful, and buckthorn and the Japanese knotweed. And so the city of Guelph's invasive plant removal really involves, like herbicides and like more sort of machinery. They don't really care about the garlic mustard all that much. So there's nothing on their site, but if you're interested about those other invasives, you could check out the link there. And then I put in a couple of really nice websites. There's one on wild edible food, and it talks about a whole bunch of things that you can pull up and eat. The only thing that I would say is that more and more people are doing wild edibles foraging, and there's a concern that people are going to be taking too much. And so there is sort of like a debate going on, I guess, around how much people should be taking, and if in fact people should be growing their own wild edibles. Garlic mustard, that's not an issue, of course, but when we're talking about things like nettles and things like that. So that's a really great website, but again, just a word of caution that you want to be sparing when you're taking from the wild. Same thing with Eat the Weeds. And this website actually has a really involved history of garlic mustard. So if you're interested in more information about how it got here, what it used to be used for, and what it used to be used for in cooking, that's a really good place to go. And then the last one is Ontario's Invasive Species Awareness Program. So again, it does talk about garlic mustard, and that one actually might be a good place to go if you're looking for sort of hotspots in the area, or like, where you can find a lot of it. But then they also have all the other invasive species information as well. Okay, so that wraps it up. If anyone has final questions or comments, or if you have any recipes or any resources that you would like to share with people, now is the time.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and thank you very much to OPIRG and for you three for putting on this lovely presentation. And I am very excited to hopefully make some garlic mustard pesto. That's really great. So I'm just going to put the link for the 2Rivers Festival here in the chat box, and you can check out for the rest of the events. Maybe I spoke a little too soon. We have one question in here. Does garlic mustard crowd out violets?
I don't know. I haven't heard specifically that it crowds out violets more than any other thing. Violets actually are quite, they do a pretty good job of carpeting the area, but violets are like a good plant. So I still see violets in places where there's garlic mustard. So I don't think it's to the extent that it crowds out other things. And I think part of the reason is that violets are another plant that comes up really early in the spring. So partially the thing with garlic mustard is that it comes up so early and it grows so fast that it kind of like other plants don't have a chance. But violets are actually a plant that also come up early. So I don't know the exact answer to that question. I don't know, Kieran, if you or Nat, if you do, but definitely you can still see a lot of violets along the river.
Mandy, I'll tell you why I asked the question is that there's a stand of violets near where I am, and right in the center of it is garlic mustard. And so I was curious as to whether it's eventually the violets will be gone because the garlic mustard sends out sort of anti-violet stuff, Yeah.
I mean, I would say err on the side of caution, because violets are like a really, really important food source. So
For sure, yeah.
I would go to that stand, because the thing is, like, we have been doing garlic mustard pulls for years, and it's like, I mean, it is kind of like fighting a losing battle, you know, like we're like, oh, we'll come back to this stand every year, and you know, we finish after an hour and a half, and there's like a part of it and there's no garlic mustard, but then you just look a little to the left and a little to the right and it's like it's full, you know. So if you kind of have an area where there's like a reasonable amount that you think that you can pull out, and like it's completely gone from that area, and then there's already a plant there taking up the space, I think that would be a really, really good place to pull it. It will have like the most benefit for the least amount of work, I think, in a place like that.
Definitely, I can answer this. Definitely, you know, the little plant, like a herbaceous plant, is impacted by the garlic mustard, because roots produce some chemical, and then it change the soil texture, and then it impacted to the violet also. We don't have any research finding, but it may change there, you know. It's not tolerated by the violet and it's going to be a disappear. Who knows? It's a possibility. And it has a lots of seeds for the garlic mustard, and Mandy already talked about those things, 5 years. That's why, you know, it comes and comes, continue coming. And it's the nature of the invasive, you know, mustard family, have a lots of seeds.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining. And we will send out the link for the recording and the presentation in the next week or so following. And we hope to see you at more events. And thank you very much.